Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. NASCAR's back. Last night, we kicked off the new season with the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. And there was a lot that happened. Spins, dump and runs, guys getting pissed off on the radio, and one driver looking for redemption after a miserable 2022 season. He captured the first checkered flag of the new year. Let's get into all that went down at the Coliseum yesterday. Number 1, Martin Truex Jr. captures the first checkered flag of the new season, winning yesterday's Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum, holding off Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson for the victory. Martin Truex Jr. was really strong the entire day yesterday, not just in the main event. His heat race, he was so strong on the long runs. That car kept passing cars left and right, took the lead in the middle of stage heat 2, and started running away with it, and nobody could catch him. Not even Kyle Busch, not even Kyle Larson. And that speed showed up in the main feature. A year ago, he made this race, but he did not run well whatsoever. And James Small even admitted it. We sucked last year. This year, they did not suck at all. They were in the top 5 the entire race and were in the top 3 pretty much the entire final segment of the race. They were so strong in the long runs, as I mentioned, and that showed up late when they took the lead late from Brian Priest with about 25 laps to go. And despite a couple of late race restarts where I thought Truex probably would be in trouble because his car wasn't that necessarily good on the short runs until after they got a few laps into a run. But those last few laps, he did a great job on those restarts, holding off challenges from everyone behind. The Chevrolets, the Toyotas, everybody. He just did a phenomenal job yesterday. And this team is looking for a big year this year. They didn't win a single race last year. They missed the playoffs. Everybody, I think, forgets that, as great as Martin Truex Jr. has been over the years, they missed the playoffs last year. We didn't see the 19 team run for a championship, and they didn't visit victory lane once last year. This year, they want to turn things around, and yeah, last night was a great start to, a new year for them, and looking to get back to their winning ways and competing for championships. There was a time last year that Martin Truex Jr. even pondered retirement. But he said in the middle of the summer, I'm coming back and I'm driving for Joe Gibbs Racing and I've got Bass Pro Shops to sponsor me and stay with me the entire time. He's just got a great relationship with Bass Pro Shops since his early days in the Xfinity Series in 2004, where he won a championship for them back-to-back years and then carried it to the Cup Series, and he's been with them pretty much the entire time, despite a few years at MWR when he was sponsored by Napa Auto Parts. But Martin Truex Jr. just had a great car last night. He just ran so well, battled up front, and was able to pull through with the first checkered flag of the season. Maybe this is a sign of good things to come for this team. Maybe, just maybe, 13 days from now, we might see Martin Truex Jr. finally win the Daytona 500, something he came so close to winning in 2016, but fell short to Denny Hamlin in the closest 500 finish ever. Nonetheless, this is a great start to a bounce-back year for Martin Truex Jr. and the 19 team. So round of applause to them and their squad on a great car last night as they captured the first checkered flag of the year, and they got to have the trophy and they got to have a medal because the top 3 actually stood on the podium post-race to celebrate their top 3 finishing positions. So great job by Martin Truex Jr. and the 19 team. Number 2, RCR off to a hot start with its new squad. This year, of course, as Austin Dillon behind the wheel of the 3 car and the new driver of the 8 car, Kyle Rowdy Busch. And last night was an impressive start to the tenure with Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing, as well as having Austin Dillon as a teammate. Both cars were really, really good in their heat races and in the main feature. There were times where I thought if the Toyotas slip up and get passed on the outside, the RCR boys could give them a run for their money, and they were so strong the entire night. Austin Dillon was so good in this race a year ago and finished inside the top 5. Kyle Busch was really good in this race a year ago. He finished second to Joey Logano at the time when he was driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. In his first race with Richard Childress Racing, phenomenal job. They had great speed. They started first in their heat race number 2, the one that Truex won. They slipped to second place in that event, but they were able to make the main feature and pretty much ran the top 5 the first half of the race. Then the second half came where there was a lot of stuff that happened, and Kyle Busch actually got spun by Joey Logano, and it put him to the rear of the field. And Kyle was not happy about it because him and Joey Logano, they don't get along very well with each other. But despite all that, Kyle Busch, I don't know if it's obviously Kyle Busch's talent or if it's maybe the new equipment he's driving. He charged his way back from that spin to reach the top 5 in the final laps of the race. I'm like, if we get a few more cautions and if something happens to Martin Truex, Kyle Busch is going to pass. He took some opportunities on the outside lane on one of those late race restarts. It just couldn't get anything going, especially when the guy on the inside kind of drifts you up a little bit so he can get a better exit off of turn number 2. But nonetheless, a great start to Kyle Busch's tenure at Richard Childress Racing. Obviously, it's not an official race, but nonetheless, a phenomenal start for both of these teams. Could this be the start of a resurgence of Richard Childress Racing competing up front, battling for race wins, battling for top 5s, and maybe being a contender for the championship this year? Time will tell, but nonetheless, a great start for Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon and Richard Childress Racing in 2023 with a second and a third last night, joining Truex on the podium post-race. Number 3, 2 drivers had really good runs last night. Just came up short in the very end. They happen to be Bubba Wallace for 2311 Racing and Ryan Preece, the new driver, the 41 for Stewart-Haas Racing. Bubba Wallace a year ago in this race, terrible. Absolutely terrible. They did not have the speed, despite getting into the last chance qualifier. They had no speed in the main feature and were never a contender at all. This year, however, they had good speed in their cars when they arrived to the Coliseum. It showed in practice and showed in their heat race. They were able to make the main feature through their heat race. And they had good track position the entire time. They ran up front. They led a lot of laps. They battled it out with Martin Truex. Battled out with those Chevrolets, or whichever one it was. RCR, some of those Hendrick cars. Ryan Preece, who came at the end. Bubba Wallace had such a good race car last night. We saw speed not just in his car, but his new teammate, Tyler Reddick, as well. He ended up with a top 10 finish. Bubba, at times, I thought was going to pull through and win this race. But he got involved in an incident on the closing laps of the race where he got spun by Austin Dillon, who was trying to fill a hole between his teammate Kyle Busch and Bubba Wallace in front, and Dillon sent it straight deep into turn number 1 and sent Bubba Wallace spinning, and Bubba brought out the caution that took him completely out of contention for the race win. He ended up with a 22nd place finish. That finish is not indicative of how he ran last night. He was so strong, and he just sat in his car post-race just dejected, just sitting there just drinking. He just didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to talk to the media. He just sat in his car for a while and just had a moment to think about what went down. It sucks. He had a great car. Maybe this is a sign that he's going to have a big year this year with his team, but last night could have been a good start to the year if he had won the thing. Just that incident with the 3 cars what took him out of it. And then Ryan Preece started at the rear of the field based on his finishing position in his heat race, but he quickly charged to the front. Remember, he was in this race a year ago driving for Rickwell Racing. This time it was Stewart-Haas Racing, and that car slowly, methodically worked its way up there, and by the time the final segment rolled around, Ryan Preece became a part of the show. I kind of had a feeling that if Ryan Preece could get up there and challenge for the lead, he could put on a show, and I wasn't surprised by this because, again, his early days of racing in modifieds allowed him to get up to NASCAR, and when you see him on these short tracks, he can really put on a good show and be a contender for a top 5 finish, maybe even the win, given the right equipment. And this equipment last night, he took it straight to the front with about 70 laps to go, and he was so dominant in the final part of that race. It looked like he was going to pull away with the entire thing, ahead of Truex and Bubba and everybody else. But with a couple laps to go, 25 to go, he got passed by Truex. The reason why, they had electrical problems in the car, and he started to slip back and lose positions almost every single lap. And I'm like, such a heartbreaker, because he probably could have been a big upset to kick off the season by winning the Clash. Despite all that, he was able to salvage a 7th place finish. It's not the finish he wanted, but nonetheless, it's a great start to his tenure at Stewart-Haas Racing, and maybe that performance could show people Ryan Preece could be someone to watch out for this year, maybe be the ultimate underdog to make the playoffs, and maybe if he were to make it, make a deep run. There's a lot of short tracks this year that benefit his racing style. Martinsville, Richmond, Loudon's a flat track, and he's really good there, especially his modified days. Bristol, in the night race, he always runs well at Bristol. So this kid in this car has a great opportunity, and he showed it last night despite not getting the victory. But maybe this is a sign of some pretty good things he's going to do in 2023. But 2 guys that had great runs just didn't get the results they hoped for at the very end. Number 4, calamity. That was pretty much the word of the night last night in that main feature. My goodness gracious, we pretty much doubled our cautions we had from a year ago. Last year we had 5 cautions in this race. This year we had 16 cautions. 16 cautions. The chaos pretty much started in the first segment about lap 16 when Eric Jones was running in the middle of the pack. He got spun from behind and actually tapped the back end of Kevin Harvick's car, and unfortunately that knocked the right rear toe link out of the 43, and that sent him out of the race. Then we had multiple spins after that. Ryan Blaney got spun around, and he got hit by Daniel Suarez and Chase Elliott, and those three guys weren't really much of a contender. Blaney at one point actually got back in the lead lap and got back to the top 10 at some point in the final segment in the closing laps until he hit the wall again. Then we had AJ Allmendinger go for a spin. We had Denny Hamlin go for a spin, courtesy of Ross Chastain. Again, those two they're like magnets. You can't take them apart. You can't keep them away from each other. They're just somehow stuck to one another. And we have mentioned Kyle Busch got spun around by Joey Logano. We had Austin Cindric get spun. Christopher Bell got spun. Michael McDowell got spun. We had so much chaos last night. It's great for short track racing, and it's great for an event like this, an exhibition race. But there's been talks about, could this possibly be a points event? I think last night, despite the entertainment that we got, all those spins and all those cautions, I think that threw up the idea that this cannot be a points race whatsoever. I like this event. I really do. But I don't think making it a points race would work. Plus, how are we going to fit all are we just going to have limited amount of cars in this race? We put 27 cars on the track this year. We had more chaos than we did with 23 cars we had a year ago. We cannot afford to put 36 chartered teams or maybe other open teams if they're willing to enter on this track next year in a point event. You can't do that. It's going to have to be an exhibition race. You make the main event, you race for, the pride and race for the first trophy. It doesn't cost anything points-wise. Just go out there and have fun. Put on a show. They put on a show last night, probably a little too much to the extreme, but I can understand why, because, we had a year of learning about what this car does on this track and how the drivers handled this track from a year ago. We learned a lot from it, and I think they took it to the extreme last night with a lot of the spins and incidents, but it was good action in general, but not enough to make it a points race. I can tell you that. It's not going to work, but I had a blast watching these guys spinning. It just seemed like after lap 1 of a restart, there would be a spin or a wreck. Two laps after a restart, a spin and a wreck. It's just the same thing. I don't remember how many, the longest green flag one we had last night, 25, 30 laps at the very least. I mean, I'd say the average green flag run that we had last night was about 12 laps because of all those cautions that we had. It was a relatively clean first segment. The second segment was back crap crazy, but that's what you're going to get with short track racing on a Sunday night. Everybody paid good money to come to this event. There was a good crowd there, and the entertainment was amazing. Just a little too much to probably make it a points race, but there was a lot of chaos last night. And number 5, Kevin Harvick, making his final season this year, was able to advance into the main feature in his heat race when the two guys in front of him, Chase Elliott and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., got out of the groove by Stenhouse bumping the 9 cars in the final transfer spot at the time and moved them both out of the groove, and Harvick got such a good run through 3 and 4 in the bottom, he was able to take that final transfer spot into the main event. Elliott was able to make it through his last chance qualifier. Stenhouse didn't. He didn't make the big event. Harvick was pretty much stuck in traffic the entire time and couldn't really get anything going. At one point, he got up to the top 10 in the closing laps of the race. I'm thinking, oh, Harvick, where he's been all the entire night, could get a top 10 out of this. That'd be pretty cool. Didn't happen. He finished with a 12th place run, but he was involved in a lot of those incidents. But at least we got to see the Busch car and the Busch Light clash. But Harvick made some big news before we got the main event going. He joined the Fox Sports crew on the race day segment, an hour segment before the main feature got started, and he sat down to reflect with them on his years in the sport. Of course, his final season officially starts on the Daytona 500 day. Kevin Harvick announced actually on the pre-race show that next year, after he has concluded his full-time Cup Series career in the 4-car this year, Kevin Harvick will join Fox Sports next year and join Mike Joy and Clint Boyer in the broadcast booth. I had a feeling that was going to happen. I said when Kevin Harvick retires, his next position is going to be with Fox Sports in the broadcast booth. He's going to do that. And lo and behold, it's come true. He will officially join Fox in 2024 next year, beginning with the Busch Light Clash and the Daytona 500. Of course, this year we still have the rotating, third spot with drivers or crew chiefs. We had Tony Stewart last night for the Busch Light Clash, and we'll have him again for the Daytona 500. But Kevin Harvick next year is a good move by Fox because Harvick started doing this back in 2015 when the Xfinity Series decided, let's get a Cup driver currently racing and put him in the broadcast booth with Adam Alexander, Michael Waltrip, and, bring their perspective on what they're seeing the young guys do on the racetrack. And the first race that they did this was the season opener at Daytona in 2015. And from the get-go, Kevin Harvick was just right on top of everything. He really knew what was happening. He knows his stuff. He's very insightful and knowledgeable about the sport. And he's been a great contributor to these broadcasts since he's joined him in 2015. He's done it for Xfinity, he's done it for Truex, and there's been times where they have drivers only broadcast and he serves as the lead announcer. Obviously, he's not going to make a good lead play-by-play announcer for Fox next year, but a good color commentator. He's really good at that. Even a play-by-play announcer for Xfinity Series, he's really good at that. But Kevin Harvick to Fox Sports next year, I love that, and I'm very happy for Kevin. And he even had a segment where they showed his wife Delana and his daughter Piper, basically wish him the best of luck and said some suggestions for him. Come up with good dad jokes. So that's one way of putting it. But very excited for Kevin Harvick. Obviously, final season, he's going to get to celebrate that this year. But he's got a brand new position next year with Fox Sports. And I'm very excited to hear Kevin Harvick in the booth next year in 2024. So congrats to your new opportunity, Kevin. Looking forward to hearing you in the booth in 2024. So all that clash chaos in the rear view mirror, the season is officially underway. Sorta. The season officially gets underway February the 19th with the Great American Race, the Daytona 500. We've got a lot of events leading up to that race. We've got qualifying on Wednesday next week. We'll set the front row. We'll figure out who's in the duels. We'll find out which cars that don't have a charter can qualify on time, and we'll see which other drivers are going to have to make it through the dual races we'll have on Thursday. Those events will be on Fox Sports 1. Then we have the Truck Series Friday night, 7:30 p.m. on FS1. Then we have the Xfinity Series 5 p.m. on FS1 Saturday. And then February the 19th, the Daytona 500, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. I cannot wait for the Great American Race, and I cannot wait to get this season officially going. We had a lot of fun last night. Can't wait to see all the action that we see at the World Center of Racing next week. Will we find out who's going to be a new Daytona 500 champion, or will we have a repeat champion? Maybe we might see Kevin Harvick win it for the final time, or we might see Martin Truex Jr. at long last finally win the Great American Race. All those questions remain to be answered, but I'm looking forward to Speed Weeks next week. I'm really excited. So hope you all enjoyed last night's race. Leave your comment down below. What did you think about the event? I hope you all have a wonderful week. Subscribe, like, and congrats once again to Martin Truex Jr. and the 19 team on winning the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. Have a great week, everybody, and let's go racing!